We read about suicides taking place in the newspapers almost every day. A lot of people have many questions about it. What is causing it? How can it be prevented? And is there help available? To answer these questions, we have with us Dr. Peter Castelino, a consultant psychiatrist and director of Cooj Mental Health Foundation, an NGO which works towards promotion of mental health in Goa. Welcome to our studio, Doctor.
Thank you.
It is very sad to know that many people are taking their lives these days. Is it actually a big problem here in Goa?
Actually, it is sad. It is sad that a lot of people are taking their lives, and if we see that it is a preventable condition, if we go to the numbers, we'll see that the national level, the rate of suicide is almost 11.4 per lakh population. And in Goa, you'd think that the rate should be lower because we are in more educated state, we are a more advanced state. But no, the rate is actually higher than the national average. We're almost at 15.8 per lakh population. So what we are seeing is that more people are ending their life in Goa. And not only in Goa, if you look at the southern states of India, the more educated states, the rate of suicide is much higher than the national average. And that is a really sad thing that's happening. And more than that, if you go to see the rates that are reported, it's just the tip of the iceberg, because not all suicides are reported as suicides. I mean, that we know. A lot of suicides may go unreported due to poor certification. So that is just the tip of the iceberg of the actual problem. If we take it one step ahead, for every person that is dying to suicide, there are at least 20 to 25 more people who have attempted and survived. So now we've seen that the problem has multiplied another 20-25 more times.
So there are still many people who
are attempting it. So the statistics are those who are dying to suicide. If you go to attempters and survivors of an attempt, it's gone multiplied by 25 more times. But the problem doesn't stop there. The problem doesn't stop there. For every person that has died to suicide, there are around 20 to 25 more people who attempted suicide and survived, and there are another 100 more people who are thinking about it. So when you look at statistics, it has blown to 100 times as the problem.
So there are these various, let's say them in categories, like there are some who have already attempted suicide.
And there's so many more people who are thinking about it. So what I'm trying to say, the magnitude of the problem is huge. So if you look at statistics, it just reflects on the number of people that are dying. What you read on the newspapers, you probably read 1 or 2 suicides happening a few suicides happening every week. You read on the papers, but that is not what the problem is. And if you go one step ahead, and if you ask me that question, most people have that question, what about young people?
True.
I mean, and especially now during exam times, this question keeps coming up, do people who are young, I mean, is suicide a problem over there? And surprisingly, suicide is almost, I would say, the #1 killer in young people between the ages of 15 and 24. Between this 15 and 29 rather, between this age group, suicide is the leading cause of death. I mean, some years back it was due to accidents, but today it's no more accidents. Today it is suicide, and therefore we need to protect our young people. I mean, we are doing a lot for the young people of our state. We need to handle their emotions. We need to handle their stress. We need to teach them to handle their stressors. And we need to have a program in place that will tackle the very core of suicide.
So one could be exam-related stress, but besides that, amongst youngsters or others, what could be the other problems leading to suicides in Goa?
Yes, that's a very interesting question that you asked, and yes, we can say that there are so many issues, and people will pinpoint it. Yes, exam-related stress, or peer pressure, or relationship issues, and people really do not know how to handle their relationships, financial problems, their struggles, the legal issues, and I look at this as stresses and coping problems. But the main issue actually is that people do not know how to handle their stress. Like you put in, for instance, 100 students who would possibly fail in their exams. Not all 100 take their life or think of dying.
Okay.
But there is a small percentage of people that do have that problem. It's because they are not equipped themselves to face the challenges of life. And therefore, I think today what we need to do to handle this is we need to equip young people with life skills so that they will have these skills then to face the challenges of life. Because I mean, today we are living in a very fast-paced world, and you know, somewhere along the way, with a lot of social media and a lot of issues that uh, I would say a lot of the influence of the media, people are not able to really grow within themselves, and therefore they're not able to face the challenges of society because somewhere they're not developing skills which are so very important. As simple as listening, as simple as just today people don't sit down and talk. You know, the basic skill of communication has moved more to technological communication, and therefore they're not able to identify emotions, identify feelings, and handle them.
That in itself is a problem.
Yeah, and if you look at it over the broad spectrum, almost 60 in India, almost 60% of the suicides that happen are due to a mental health problem.
Okay.
Okay, a diagnosable mental health problem, like the most common is being depression.
All right.
Okay, another big risk factor for suicide is alcohol-related problems. Okay, substance use, and then the others, personality disorders and psychosis, and you know, the whole realm of anxiety disorders, and all these are huge contributory factors to suicide. But what I'm also saying is that 40% is due to just not able to handle their issues. And if we can teach people how to cope in relationships, how to cope in difficult relationships, how to handle peer exam stress,
Okay.
we will be able to actually save a lot of lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these being the problems, how does one know in society? I mean, do these people who want to attempt suicide, do they send any kind of warning signs, or do they, like, you know, give out signs that they are feeling suicidal, so to say? Do they feel that?
In fact, yes. In fact, yes.
I mean, how will one know that, you know, okay, maybe this friend of mine is feeling suicidal? How can I help her or him?
Yes. How do you pick on, like, you know, how do you
Yes.
know that this one is having a problem? And I think the first thing that we need to be aware is a change in the behavior of the person. So if the person was generally quite talkative and, you know, quite interactive and social, and suddenly now reclusing, you know, going into a shell, that becomes a warning sign. Suddenly a person becoming more irritable, it's a warning sign. At home, the person not sleeping, very restless, agitated, it's a warning sign. Suddenly someone is drinking more than usual, suddenly smoking up more, you know, using drugs, warning sign. But one of the most commonest warning sign, which very often is not picked up, is when people actually talk about dying. They will give out clear indicators.
Okay.
Indicators like life is not worth living. What is the point of life? I wish I was dead.
Many a times friends can take it as a joke also and not take them seriously, right? When they say such things.
Exactly,
Isn't it?
exactly. And no, there's a big misconception that people who are suicidal don't talk about it, but actually 80% of people have given out a very clear warning sign. And these are some, they'll actually express it out. But what you say is, we do not take it seriously. We say, you know, he's simply saying it, you know. They don't take that sentence with the kind of focus that it requires. You know, you need to pay attention to this and you need to take it seriously. And people will say words, it's over, I'm fed up.
So indirectly, they're actually screaming for help.
They're screaming for help. There is a small percentage that will actually say, I want to die.
Okay.
But sometimes even those are not taken seriously. And if you go, I mean, there were these psychological autopsies have been done where they've gone to families who have lost someone to suicide, and they've gone back and actually dissected all the memories they have of that person's life, and then they will realize people actually have said it out in clear terms that they want to die, that they're fed up of life, and people have just brushed it aside. So if we can pick on that, we definitely, I mean, this is one of the biggest suicide prevention tools that we have, to pick on when someone is, you know, crying out for help.
So you mean to say that suicide can really be prevented? I mean, completely.
See, to use the word
Or can it
completely,
be prevented?
but yes, suicide is preventable.
Alright.
You know, and really, if it be, and if you look at suicide prevention, people say, "Oh, it's up to the doctors, it's up to the psychiatrists," and the theme of the World Suicide Prevention Day last year was take a minute and change your life. So what the WHO was trying to send out a very clear message is that suicide prevention is everyone's business.
Okay.
See, like for instance, in a school, the students might be talking to teachers or talking to their friends, and that's where that thing, "I want to die, I can't handle change in behavior," is observed over there. So they can pick on the signs, they can play their role at home, parents can play their role. So it is everyone's business, and therefore we need to know these few tips, and these few tips will actually go a long way into suicide prevention. Yeah.
Okay. So, besides that,
But I would like to, I mean, I'm sorry,
Yes.
butting you in, but very times, many people do not take it seriously because they feel that people threaten suicide to get their way,
rather ask for attention.
seeking
Right.
attention,
Yeah.
that they're trying to manipulate us. You know,
Yeah.
if I don't give them something, they will threaten suicide. If I don't give them a bike, they'll threaten suicide.
What one would say is an attention seeker.
Total. And that's where again, you know, it's difficult because maybe yes, maybe they are, to some level they are, but I would say if someone is even threatening suicide to gain a particular need or to fulfill a certain need, we still need to take it seriously.
And should that need be fulfilled?
I'm not talking about the need being fulfilled, but there is a deeper need.
Okay.
What is the deeper need? The deeper need is this person cannot handle a no. This person cannot handle a no. Everything becomes yes. So there is a lack in the coping mechanism of that person. And that has to be tackled.
Okay.
You understand? So very often people just brush it away and they shout at them, they reprimand them, but they do not know that the real root of the problem is the inability to cope with a no. So the thing is that for every case of suicide, every case of expressed intent to die, we need to take it seriously.
So, since this is a very deep problem which has to be tackled at the roots, what do you think, doctor, goes on in the mind of a person who is thinking of suicide? What's going on in their minds?
Very good question. And I think what you're trying to ask me is that, do people who want to die really want to die? You know?
Yeah.
And we've spoken to so many people, and I would say almost most people don't want to die. No one wants to die. You know, but they come to a point in their life where they're not able to handle life. Life becomes overwhelming. Life becomes too stressful. They are not able to handle the very daily, day-to-day activities of life. They're not able to handle the stress, and therefore the tilt towards wanting to die. So there is this great ambivalence that takes place in the mind.
Okay.
The need to live vis-a-vis the need to die. And once the need to die overcomes or becomes stronger than the need to live, that's when the ideas of suicide also increases. But at every level in the mind, there is scope for help, and that is one thing which we need to understand.
And how does one handle this? I mean, when you come across such a person, you know, how do you handle a person who comes to you with such a need, with such a case, you know, where they are feeling more towards dying than living?
The way to handle is actually to get to this ambivalence.
Okay.
Because as I said, they want to live, but they're not able to cope with life, and therefore the need to die starts increasing. So if we can look at this ambivalence and tap into this ambivalence and say, yeah, I can understand that you want to die, you're feeling like dying, but at the same time you have this need to live also, and get to the root. And the basic way to get to the root is by listening. Simple, by listening. It's like if someone asks someone starts expressing, yes, I'm fed up of life.
Okay.
What do most people say? If I ask you, if I ask you that question, what do you think most people say? Suppose someone came to you and said, I'm fed up of life, it's over. How would you handle it? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Maybe I would say, like, go find a life, or go just, do something.
Exactly. So what we do is, we are very uncomfortable when they start talking about death, and so we try to give them advice.
Yes.
We try to give them quick fix solutions. Like if a student says he didn't do well in his exams, or he's having some problems with his relationships, and we'll say, come on, you're too young to be thinking of death. Come on, life is so beautiful, and why don't you just snap out of it and get to life? But it's not so easy. You can't just snap out of a deep thought of wanting to die. You just cannot. So we need to understand that he is at that point where he cannot deal with it.
So is it in such a case okay to ask a child or a person like this, are you feeling suicidal?
Absolutely.
Is it okay to ask, to be blunt and just
My
ask
God, I'm
them?
happy you brought in that point.
Okay.
Absolutely, you have to ask that question. And most people...
Or would it be like giving him an idea, putting an idea in his head by asking him that?
Exactly. In fact, if someone comes and asks us, do you want to die? Do you feel like dying? Or, sorry, if someone expresses, I'm fed up of life, and how do you get to the point to know that whether he's actually feeling suicidal? Asking the direct question, are you feeling suicidal?
Okay.
It's okay to ask that question. And you brought in a very important thing. Will we be putting ideas in his mind by asking that question? We will not be putting any idea. In fact, this is a researched area where if someone expresses this, we need to ask this question. If he is not feeling suicidal, he's not going to feel upset. He's not going to feel upset that we ask this question. And if he's feeling suicidal, he will understand now that someone is there who can understand the level of his pain. See, it's not easy to talk about your suicidal ideas with anyone, to come to that level of expression of your idea, because people feel that if I talk about it, someone will not understand. If I talk about feeling suicidal, I will be shunned. If I talk about feeling suicidal, it is sinful. Up till lately, it was unlawful. So people hold it in, but they want to talk about it. They want to talk about their pain, and who will they talk about it? But if you are there with them, understanding their situation, empathizing with them, and allowing them to express these ideas, definitely they will talk about it, and they will feel relieved that there is someone else who is with me in my situation.
Okay.
So we are not putting any ideas into anyone's mind. No.
So there's nothing wrong about it.
And in fact, this is the biggest suicide prevention question.
Okay.
We need to feel comfortable to ask it, and ask it more often when we sense the warning signs.
Oh. Okay.
When we sense that there is this change, there is these questions that are being asked, there are these expressions of life not being worth it. We need to ask that direct question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Doctor, your mental health foundation, that is Cooj, is currently running a helpline. Can you tell us something about it for the benefit of...
Yeah. So Cooj started off the helpline in 2013. We started off our suicide prevention program in 2012, and in 13 we started off a helpline. The number is 225 25 25, and it is operational from Monday to Friday between 3 to 7 p.m. And we get calls of all levels of distress, right from low risk to high risk. And when I say high risk, I would mean the risk where the person is actually feeling like dying at that point in time, and probably he's even, he's at the brink of suicide.
Okay.
So it's a confidential helpline. It's and we follow the basic. We follow the principles. Rather, we are how do I put it? But we are following the principles as guided by the Befrienders International. So it's a confidential helpline. We non-judgmental, and we are available to the callers. And we help them to go through their feelings and their emotions, and they can talk about things that they cannot talk anywhere else. It's a very safe place where they can express their pain. We get frequent calls, so we have one is the telephone service, and we have the email service also. So people can write in their problems if they don't feel comfortable in calling us. Our email, which they can write in, is youmatterbykuj@gmail.com, where they can even write in their problems if they feel uncomfortable in calling the service.
Okay.
Many people ask us this question: why only 5 days a week and 4 hours when someone commits suicide at any time of the day? And as I said, we run according to the guidelines and principles of Befrienders International, which allows only for volunteers. And right now we have volunteers only to sit for that many hours. I'm really, in fact, just today we were having a meeting with our coordinators how to increase the timings, and I need more volunteers. So if there's anyone who would like to volunteer to sit on the helpline, we do have a training. Okay, you don't need to be a professional. You can.
They will be trained.
We will be training them in a 5 days intensive practical hands-on mindfulness-based active listening, which will equip them with skills to take calls of all types of distress. So we are looking out for volunteers, and the next training is actually happening in the last week of May and first week of June. So 2 successive weekends we'll be having this training, and we're actually looking out for volunteers. So if there's anyone who would like to volunteer to sit on the helpline once a week, just 4 hours a week, between 3 and 7. And if we get more volunteers, then we are planning on extending our helpline timings. Please do contact us.
And for the benefit of our viewers, maybe if you could repeat the helpline number and the email once again.
Yes, so the helpline number is 225 25 25. It's operational from Monday to Friday between 3 and 7 p.m. And the email is youmatterbykuj, that is youmatterbycooj @gmail.com.
Well, Dr. Peter, thank you for your time here with us, and God bless you and the work that you are doing.
Thank you so much.